So excited to kick off season 2 of the Junto with our special guest, Kathi Reuter, today. This is the kind of person who I have been envisioning for the show since we've first brought it out or been talking about being a podcast for a long time. And this is exactly who I wanted to talk to and bring her to you guys because her story is incredible. But more than that, she is a mindset coach for executives. Started as a school teacher, stayed home as a mom for a little bit, and then worked as a stay-at-home mom as well. But our conversation is enlightening and really kind of a peek behind the scenes. If you haven't started your business yet, or if you already have, you'll recognize a lot of the limiting beliefs that still plague Kathi and still plague myself. And so we kind of commiserate and chat about those and how we have fought to overcome them, not always successfully in our journey so far. So great conversation with Kathi Reuter, and I hope you enjoy. All right, we're very excited today to have Kathi Reuter on the Junto. She's a mindset coach for online entrepreneurs and teaches you how to reprogram your mind for success and happiness. She helps remove the blocks that are preventing you from getting what you want in business and in life. She's got a program called the Mindset Accelerator, an online membership you can find at KathiReuter.com. And I'm very excited to have her on the show. Welcome, Kathi.
Awesome. Hey, Scott. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and as I was telling you right before we hit record, like I've had you on my list forever. You're kind of like the perfect guest for this show, or my concept of the show before we started it, as someone that talks, heavily about mindset.
Yep.
And I want to dig into that so hard. So KathiReuter.com is where you live now, online anyways. But how did you become like a mindset person with your own podcast? And I didn't mention it. Her podcast is called Do Life Big, and we'll probably get to that a lot. But how did you come to be where you are now?
This is a long story.
Sure, let's go.
How long is this episode? So it's really funny, actually. So just to kind of go way back in time, I actually went to school to be an elementary school teacher. I had my master's degree in special education. I just always knew that I wanted to be a teacher when I graduated college. So I did all that, became a teacher. But then I also knew in the back of my mind that once I had kids, I just wanted to stay at home. Like literally, I was living in this little fairy tale land of like, you know what, once I have kids, I'm just going to quit teaching and I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom and I'm never going to do anything again and life is going to be great. And so I ended up having Landon. Landon's 12. So I have the 3 kids. Landon's 12, Kirsten just turned 11, and then Keegan is 5 right now. So, I have Landon. I resigned from my teaching job. I'm staying at home, like doing the whole stay-at-home mom thing. Nick is like working his ass off. He's doing his full-time job. He's doing like videography on the side. He's doing website development on the side. He's doing all these things to make ends meet because I had just given up my whole teaching salary, which isn't really that much now, but back then it was like $75,000. And that's a lot to just all of a sudden just, not be making.
Yeah.
I was tutoring most nights of the week, and we got to this point where we were in so much debt. So this was like probably, so Landon's 12 now. This was like, this was like 11 years ago, right? So 11 years ago, because we were living off of that one income, we had depleted our entire savings account. We had racked up like $35,000 worth of credit card bills. We were sinking by $1,000 every single month. And we were literally doing everything we could to make ends meet and to, make some income. And it was in that moment that, I feel like everything happens for a reason. And there's opportunities all around you if you keep your eyes open and you at least open the door. And I just knew that I could not go back to teaching. And my back was against the wall. Nick was like, Kathi, you are going to have to put the kids in daycare. And at this time, Landon was like 2 and Kirsten was 6 months old. And he's like, you're going to have to put the kids in daycare and you're just going to have to go back to work. And I just remember feeling like this gut wrenching, like you are such a failure. Like you totally failed. Like this was your goal and your dream to be home with the kids. And now you have to go back. Like what? And I don't even know. Like it just happened to be that somebody told me that I could start my own health and fitness business from home. And it was actually through network marketing.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was through Beachbody. Well, now it's Body. Anyways, that's all gone. And I was like, I'm the type of person that like when I make my decision, I go all for it. Like there's no half-assing it. There's no like, let me just try and see if this works. I hope it works out. I hope I earn some money. Like hope I don't have to go back to teaching. It was like, this is working for other people. This is my problem. Here's my solution. And I am going to take it and I'm going to freaking run with it. And when I got into it, I didn't have any big goals or anything. I just wanted to earn, honestly, a couple $100 every single month to keep me home with the kids. We weren't going to be able to get out of the debt. We weren't going to be able to save any money, but it would at least keep me home with the kids. And basically everyone around me, including my husband at the time, thought it was the biggest scam and thought that it wasn't going to work. And they all thought I was going to be wasting my time, which honestly is more fuel to the fire for me. I love it when people say, oh, it's so stupid, or oh, that goal's ridiculous. Who do you think you are? You really? Okay, come on, Kathi, let's be realistic, because then it pushes me to prove the person wrong. And so I proved everybody wrong. And I did that business for a good solid 9 years, and we built, one of the fastest teams in the network. I built a really successful business doing that all from home, all during part-time hours at my kitchen counter in Massachusetts at the time, and all while raising the kids. And while I was mentoring all of these women, I noticed this one common theme, because I was not only teaching them how to get healthy and fit from home, but I was also teaching them how they could earn more income to be home and spend more time with their families. And I was noticing, as I was mentoring all these women through the years, that there was this missing link. It wasn't that these women didn't want the dream to become their reality. It's not that they weren't even putting in the work. It wasn't that they weren't doing the things and they weren't inspired. It was just that they weren't getting the results that they wanted because they didn't really deep down believe that they could. And their mind wasn't wired for success at that time. And so that was when I decided, after 9 years of doing my coaching business, that if I could just help people start with the mind, and then everything else that they want will happen so much easier and be so much more effortless. It'll be fun. It'll be enjoyable. They won't have this stress and this attachment to whether or not they were going to make these goals happen or not. And that's when I decided, you know what? And again, when I make a decision, there's no let me just kind of think about it.
Yeah.
Although I did go through a phase where for 2 years, I'm kind of all over the place with this story. Sorry, but it's a long journey.
I love it. I'm taking notes. Yeah.
Feel free to interject anytime you want. But I had this calling to start my own business, to create my own mindset program, to mentor people one-on-one, to start my own podcast for literally 2.5 years while I was doing the other business. Mm-hmm. But I was too scared to make the leap to do it, because I still had fear inside of me, because on paper, everything with that business was going great. I was rolling in the dough. Everybody knew me for health and wellness. I grew this huge following on Instagram, which I didn't even have an Instagram account when I first started that business. And it was what I was doing, and I could do it in my sleep. But one of the things is that it wasn't fulfilling me anymore. And I hate that feeling where you're just in the motion of it. You're just going through the motions. You're just clocking in and clocking out. And I know that I was making a difference in helping other people, but it wasn't giving me the energy and the excitement like it used to. And it was because I had this other idea on my heart that I kept on ignoring. And, it's it will continue to get louder and louder until you actually act on it. And so finally, 2.5 years later of dragging my feet, I was like, let's draw the line in the sand. You're not starting over, because I had it in my head that okay, I've been doing this for 9 years. Now I'm starting back at the bottom again. I'm not starting back at the bottom again. Right? Everything that I've learned over those last 9 years, I was going to take with me. I was actually way ahead of the game. So I'm I'm going to just do it. I'm going to start the podcast. I'm going to create my Mindset Accelerator program, and I'm just going to do the damn thing. And so 2.5 years ago, that's when I did that. I made the shift away from my health and wellness business and moved into that. And one of the other key pieces that I learned during that process was I got to this place in my health and fitness business where I had actually plateaued at a multi-6-figure income level. And I could not figure out why. And I was doing all the things. I was all right, let me just hire another business mentor. If I can just read some more PD, if I can 10x what I'm doing, if I just work a little harder, if I grind a little more, if I just make a little bit more sacrifices, stay up a little bit later, wake up a little bit earlier, and just keep going, then it will eventually happen. But the problem is that I kept thinking that my actions were going to give me the results that I wanted. And this is where most people go wrong. They think that it's just the doing, but it's not. It's the being behind the doing that gives you the results that you want. And the being is really all the thoughts that you have about yourself and what you're really capable of doing. And I had looked at that roadblock, that income plateau, as me being a failure. Because I'm at this income plateau, I'm a failure. I'm not I'm not meant to go as far as I had hoped with this business. And it wasn't until I actually figured that out and learned how to really just reprogram my mind and reframe failure, I wasn't able to break through that income block until then. And so I was so many people get to this place in their business where they're plateaued. They think this is it. this is as far as I'm going to go. Like, who am I to have these big goals anyways? They have a hard time like separating themselves from just being present with their kids. Like when they're with their kids, they're constantly thinking about, oh man, oh, my business and this and that and the other thing. And then when they're working their business, they have all this guilt for not being with their family. And so it just kind of helps get rid of all of that. And so, yeah, it's been about 2.5 years now where I know it's long-winded, where I've put the health and fitness business aside. And now I just focus on my mindset business, which is so much more in alignment and so much more me. I mean, it's literally what everybody knew me for anyways in the previous business. You know, I'd go on all different kinds of team calls and speak to the leaders and their teams and help them with mindset. And so I'm like, duh, clearly this is what you should be doing.
Yeah. All right. I have so many questions. So let's go backwards a little bit.
It was a lot, I know.
No, and I love it. And I want to pick up that story in a second from like when you took the leap and where you are now. But kind of, you mentioned a couple things there. But I first want to highlight that somebody who went from 75,000 to zero, and then, you know, not blink of an eye, probably took you 9 years, but then felt like a failure at 200,000+ in your business. So just kind of like, no matter where you are and how successful others think you might be, like your husband and all your friends thought you were crazy. And then now you have 6 figures. They're probably like, you made it. And you're like, I'm a failure. And so... Right. And so that's just crazy to me how we can do these things and convince ourselves of these thoughts or believe the thoughts that we have of ourselves.
I know. I was really attaching myself too much to like the goal and the income. It was almost like I was like, if my income isn't growing, then I'm not making an impact and I'm just not cut out really for this type of thing. And then you get in your head, and you know how that is, right? And then it's in your subconscious, and those thoughts are behind every single action you take. And oh my God, it was hell.
Attorneys will sometimes reach out to me and be like, you have what I want. And I'm like, I'm figuring it out still. You're like, I've been doing this for close to 10 years and like, I still am figuring it out too.
Oh yeah, definitely. So you never stop learning. I mean, there's always going to be another roadblock. There's always going to be another bump in the road.
Yeah.
Normal.
And I mentioned briefly, like somebody in our Origins Incubator program last year on an office hours call, because we incorporate a lot of mindset into this program too. And it's for physicians building their practice. So we help about 30 to 40 people a year kind of build a practice. And one of them asked me, because Linda and I both did a lot of mindset training as well. And then she goes, when does it get easier? And I tried not to laugh. And I was like, I flippantly was like, it doesn't. You know, it just doesn't get easier. But on reflecting, I think it does. The thing that you're struggling with today gets easier, but then a new challenge arises. And so
yeah, exactly.
I think,
and it doesn't keep you down like so long. You know what I mean? It doesn't stop you in your tracks so long. Like you're able to really see and understand that this is really all part of the journey and being an entrepreneur. And it's like, you signed up for this, like, right? And so it's going to continue to happen, but it doesn't slow you down as much as it used to before. You're able to see, oh, okay, like this is happening for a reason. Like, what am I going to learn from this here? And I think one of the biggest things that I had to learn while going through that was to not make these roadblocks or failures mean anything negative about me as a leader and as an entrepreneur. And I think that's where most people go wrong. They attach the meaning to themselves instead of just keeping it neutral. Like, it is what it is. All right, your income is plateaued. That's it, right? Instead, we go like, oh, the income's plateaued. That must mean I don't have what it takes. That must mean I'm not smart enough. That must mean I'm not going to get to the next level. Or, we say all these stupid stories.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit stories.
Yeah. And I just think it goes back to like, there's a gap in skill or knowledge that you have. And so one, that's scary. And two, it feels like such a hill to climb. And so I want to bring that back to, you said you were dragging your feet, holding you back because you wanted to start this current business for 2+ years before you did it. What was it that was holding you back? Was it fear? Was it uncertainty or imposter syndrome or all of the above? Or...
Yeah, it was fear, and it was me, looking like a beginner again. Being a beginner again. Like, I already did that. Like, I was already at like $0, and people were already telling me, oh, that's so dumb. Like, that's not real. That's not going to work for you. And then I did it. And it was like my whole life. Like, I eat, sleep, slept and, breathed that business. And it was who I was. And people literally thought I was nuts for wanting to do something else, because they're like, why the hell would you even want to do something else? Like, you're making a tremendous amount of income. Like, you're home, you can do what you want. You've moved to Florida. Like, you have these homes in North Carolina. Like, everything is great. Like, why would you want to do this and start again and start something new? Like, can't you just stick with what you're doing? And so for me, it was a lot of fear. Like, well, like, what if they're right? But I know they're not right, because my gut instinct is always right. And I knew that if this was on my heart, that I was meant to do it. Most people ignore it. I just knew it. And so it was a lot of that. And it was also a lot of me being seen as like a beginner, not really knowing what I'm doing, and having to almost like prove myself to other people again now in this new area, even though it's like I was way more knowledgeable 2.5 years ago than I was 12 years ago when I started business. I knew nothing about business. I was just an elementary school teacher. What the hell do I know, right?
Mm-hmm. How to finger paint, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
So, at least that's just day one. But sorry, that was all holding you back. But what made you kind of like take the leap? Because I know a lot of our audience is in similar, like at least mental state. So what made you finally?
It was just feeling like I was sick and tired of feeling like unfulfilled. And, I was sick and tired of feeling like we're here on this earth for such a short amount of time. Like, you're meant to love what you're doing. You're meant to like go to bed like excited about what you're doing and wake up excited to do it again, even though there's going to be hard times in it and it's like a roller coaster. You're still supposed to feel that spark from your business, from what you're doing. It's supposed to give you energy. And my business was just draining me. And that's how I knew. And I was just like, that's it. I'm sick and tired of just sitting here feeling like this. Like, it's been 2.5 years now. You're going to keep coming back to this. For how long are you going to let this go on for? And people do this all the time in all areas of their life. It's like, how long are you going to continue to let this go on? If nothing changes, nothing changes. Either shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
And so that's when I did it. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I literally told Nick, because he knows I'm like an all or nothing person. I was like, that's it. I've made the decision. I'm doing the podcast. I'm doing the course, and I'm starting now.
Great. So I assume you didn't just leave behind the other business. You kind of built this up as simultaneously or on the side, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Like, pretty much like my other business was already on autopilot anyways. Like, I had everything was automated in my team page. Like, I was still doing like the once a month like training calls, and I just wasn't actively, out there getting people working with their health and fitness and training them and helping them build a business around it anymore. So it was kind of just all like on autopilot. So it really wasn't too difficult for me to transition away. I just basically just like, all right, I'm just going to make a post on Instagram and just tell everybody this is what I'm doing now. Because then, you start overthinking everything. Like, okay, well, my whole Instagram account was built around health and wellness. And now I'm going to be doing mindset. Do I need to start a whole new page? It's just ridiculous. It's just do it.
Yeah. I mean, this is just another subset of health and wellness, because it permeates everything. Mm-hmm. All right. So you said something that I want to highlight as well and ask you about. So hang on a second. You went from, I joked about finger painting, but then changing diapers, right? And then
yeah, wasn't easy.
Right. And then, yes, it's not easy.
No.
But then, like, I guess at least towards the end, you were then like managing a team and like being a leader, and that probably wasn't taught in your teacher certification program. So
no.
Where did those skills come from? Did you learn as you went? Did you seek out mentors? You mentioned a mentor, but did you go to training programs? Like how did you acquire those skills? Because skills have to be acquired to start businesses and be a better entrepreneur. So what happened there?
I was just thrown in the fire. Honestly, I started small. I learned as I went, to be honest. It started with like little things like, I started getting my names on the leaderboards and things like that. And people were like, who the heck is this Kathi girl? Like, I want to have her to, talk to my team. So I started like with like the small, like, team calls. And I started with like other team calls that became really large, like a couple hundred people or so, or, more than that. And then honestly, it was just more me practicing. Like, I was running team calls for my team every single week. I was getting on one-on-one calls with people. I mean, if you go back and you look at like YouTube channel from like 12 years ago and you see some of the team calls that I ran, I mean, it's unbelievable how ridiculous, like it's embarrassing almost to watch, but that's where I started. And, people think that they need to have like all the resources and go through all the training first. And I need to do all the investments, and I need to make sure I have the specific mentor, and I need to make sure I do it for X amount of time. And I have to make sure I have the website first and all this stuff before you do it. But at the end of the day, it's like, you learn as you go. And like the longer that you sit back and wait to do something, the more fear that builds up, the harder it is to actually get going. So the best thing you can do is to just start. I did have some mentors and stuff like with the network marketing business that we were in, like we were always going to like live events where they had like Brendan Burchard there, like Shalene Johnson would be there. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bob Heilig. He was there at a lot of these things. And so we always had like at least quarterly an event to go to where I was learning from these other leaders from around the world. And so that definitely was helpful. But at the end of the day, it's like you can sit there and be a sponge all you want. If you're not going to actually take the action and do something, nothing ever changes, right?
Yeah.
So you got to do it scared and you got to do it nervous and you have to do it as a beginner and just be okay and know that, you're going to get better. You're going to learn these skills like as you go.
I'm still the person that likes to absorb and not act.
Come on now, Scott.
No, I mean, if it weren't for Linda, frankly, I would probably still hate my life at the law firm, honestly, because I was afraid to take the leap too.
It's scary. I mean, change it's definitely scary for people. It's why people live where they've lived their whole entire life. It's why they stay in the same relationships they've been in for their whole entire life. It's why they stay in a job they can't stand. But at the end of the day, it's like I said, like we're on this little ball floating around.
Yeah.
This short period of time, like get behind the wheel and take control of your life and just do what you want to do, right?
Yeah. And my longtime listeners, and this will probably be like in the first 10 episodes, so not many of you, but some of the people are going to start to get tired of me talking about this. But like the same month I left my firm, I listened to the founder of Sam Adams, and he was asked on an interview, were you afraid? Because, he didn't have any brewing experience. And he said, no, I was more afraid that I would be in my accounting job 40 years from now than never take the leap and not take the chance and just hate and wonder what if. So I think that's
exactly.
I love that little vignette.
I love that. I always think about that. It's so true. It's like, there's, they say like there's nothing heavier than the pain of regret and the fear of regret. And like, really, what do you get to lose if you make this change? So you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe that didn't work out, or maybe it was one of the best decisions of your life. But all I know is that if you do nothing, at the end of the day, you're going to look back and be like, but well, what if I had done that? Or what would have happened if I had just gone for this, or if I had tried this? And no, we don't want to have any of those regrets.
Yeah. And I think a lot of my audience too has professional licenses and degrees. So I think there's always a fallback plan there for that. Right?
Yeah.
That's what gave me kind of the courage, is like, well, I can always just be a lawyer somewhere,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. It's like, I could always go back to teaching. No way. You couldn't pay me any amount of money to go back to that.
I think there's a special place in heaven for teachers, because I sometimes coach youth sports and I want to murder everybody after 1 hour of practice. I'm like, go away from me. But let's get back to you. All right. So now you announced it on an Instagram page. You didn't really have, account, and you didn't really have a website yet. And kind of what was
I didn't have
the vision on day one? And does it still look like that?
Vision on day one? Yeah. So no, it's definitely changed a lot like since then, But when I first started, I was just like, all right, I'm just going to make this announcement. I'm on Instagram like all the time. So I'm always on my stories and making reels or making posts and all that stuff. Facebook too.
And this is at Kathi Reuter.
Yes.
On any of these.
Yes. Kathi Reuter. And I just made a post on both of those accounts. I made it on Facebook. I made it on Instagram. I sent an email out to my entire email list. And I basically was just like, this is the direction that I'm going. If you want to come with me and you think this will serve you and help you and add value to your life in any way, shape, or form, this is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to continue. This is what I'm going to be talking about. This is what I'm going to be doing. And then, I wanted to create a course. And I was like, how do I do this? Like, I don't know how to do this. And it just so happened to be that right at that moment, Nick was like, oh my God, Kathi, like you've got to sign up. And you got to sign up with James Wedmore, Business by Design. And we had been listening to James Wedmore, his Business by Design podcast for, 4 or 5 years. And it was really valuable to me. But whenever he talked about this Business by Design and all this stuff, it just never really pertained, because I was doing health and wellness. And I was like, well, I'm not going to create my own health and wellness course. I'm already doing great, doing this. So when I had this idea, Nick was like, yeah, like you have to sign up and do James Wedmore Business by Design. And he's like, but it stinks because he only opens up enrollment once a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. And it just so happened that literally that was the week that he was going through his 3-day free rise of the digital
Wow.
CEO, and it was going to be opening the doors to his program, Business by Design. And I was like, oh my God, if this wasn't a sign that I'm on the right path. I mean, really, of all the weeks to finally decide this, I decided like the week he's opening up enrollment. So I did enroll with him like immediately. I was like, just open the doors and take my money. So I
Yeah.
went in, I learned everything from him. Like he's incredible. And I created my program. I followed all the steps. I'm very teachable. You know, if you're teachable and you can get it done. I didn't try to tweak it or make it different or make it better. I'm like, okay, this guy's making $13 million a year. We're just going to follow what he says.
Right.
So I went through that, created the program. The podcast was easy. I was just like, okay, get a microphone. I'll sit in my walk-in closet. I don't need a whole podcast studio right now or anything. Of course, that'd be on the vision board. And then, yeah, I just like kind of started small. Like I said, I was just opening up enrollment about maybe 3 or 4 times a year for my Mindset Accelerator program. And then after a while, I just decided like, I'm not really doing this the way that I want to do it. Like I love like being like running large groups of people and training and teaching people. Like that's really what fills me up and gives me energy. And so that's why I decided that, okay, this year I'm transitioning to, the membership. So that way I can plan it that way and host my live events for the first time ever and do all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. So that's coming up starting now in 2025. But
yes.
What did the program look like? I mean, you kind of followed the but the guidance from James Wedmore.
Yeah.
So what did it look like in the past and what is it going to look like now?
Yeah. So anyways, so when I very first started, it was really fun because I followed this whole module. It was called like Monetize Before You Make It. And basically what you do is you don't actually create the program ahead of time. You find out if this is something that people would want. Is this something that could help them? Would people actually be interested in this? And then you limit it to a really small group of people, no more than like 10 or 12. And you get them in and you have them pay you half the price of whatever you were going to pay for the program. So at the time I had them paying me $497. And then what I did is I went and I taught the course in real time to these students for a 12-week period. Uh-huh. So for a 12-week period, we met every single week for about an hour and a half. And I taught the content to this small group of people. And then they have like a whole portal. We did it through Kajabi. And everything was in there for them, which was really great. I had like a little community for them on Facebook so that they could interact with each other. And then I had to go back and then re-record all the videos, put them into like bite-sized pieces now for like the new people who are coming into the program. And now instead of then my price went up to like $997, as time went on. And now what I'll do is if people decide to become a part of my membership, they get the program for free and you can stay for as long as you want or as little as you want. It's going to be $27 a month to start. It won't go higher than probably $47 a month. And I just think that that's going to be so much more beneficial for people. And I think I'm going to love it a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And I actually have paid for courses which were clearly recorded in front of a live studio audience, and that became their evergreen course content. So good for you for re-recording it because it's a little frustrating. I get it.
Well, it's just a lot, and I know even for myself personally, like I can't, like I'm a busy mom. Like I'm on the go all the time. Like if I'm in the car driving, I love listening to stuff, but only if it's like bite-sized pieces, all right, I'll listen to this real quick because it's just 10 to 15 minutes. I can do that. But if I log in and I see like, oh, this is a 2-hour and 20-minute training, I'm like, oh God, I don't have the time for this.
I know. I know. That's hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got, by the way, her podcast is Do Life Big. And if I never really do this, but you should go listen to it because it's amazing. It's Do Life Big podcast. Thanks. And it's exactly what I love. It's all mindset. And a lot of them are short, like 15, 20 minutes. So just what she's saying. Some of her interviews go a little longer, but definitely worth it, especially if you're just 15 or 20 minutes away from the store.
Yeah, exactly. Getting ready in the morning. I know myself personally, when I'm getting ready every morning, I always put on a podcast or something, anything. I'm always listening to something.
I know. I'm with you on that. But at the same time, I try to sometimes just have nothing going on in my brain. Like, so I'm not reaching for my phone. But when I'm walking my dog, I stick earphones in and just go.
I know. Well, they do say you're supposed to spend the time sitting in the silence. Have you ever done that?
No. Does it work? Sounds awful.
It's really, right? I know. Like, get myself away from me.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't
they
have to
say,
confront my own thoughts and
yeah,
feelings.
exactly.
That's
It's like, I
weird.
don't want to deal with that. I just kind of want to put that away in a little compartment and never open it up again. Right. But
Yeah.
no, they do say that sitting quiet and having just like even just 2 minutes of silence, like, eyes closed, no sounds, no distractions. It can just help you bring clarity, especially if like you're wondering, what should I do next? Should I do this or should I do that? I'm kind of unsure. If you sit in the silence and ask yourself, the answer will always pop up. So
I wonder if that's why most people's ideas come in the shower, because there's no
probably.
distractions
Yeah, I know,
besides
right?
yourself.
It's
And then
true.
I just let the
Yeah.
water hit my head and stare at the wall for a long time. I did.
I know, me too. Sometimes I'm like, what are you even doing?
It'll get cold eventually,
Exactly. Eventually
have
I
to get
use all
out.
the hot water in the house.
All right. So this is hilarious. But so
Uh,
how do you help people? Like, would you program? We talked about your program kind of like loosely around the edges, and we talked about mindset, but like, what would you say is maybe your core person that would come in, and how do you help them?
Yeah. I mean, typically, so this is the person that comes to me. I work with online entrepreneurs. I mean, I can obviously help anybody, but it's primarily online entrepreneurs, like they're course creators, they're coaches, they're network marketers, they're in direct sales, and they've been at an income plateau for at least 3 months. And they are doing all the work, they're doing all the things, but the needle is not moving in their business and they don't know why. And so they come to me for help because what has happened is some kind of failure or roadblock has happened and they just need to learn how to like reframe that failure. Oftentimes they get stuck in like perfectionism. They're in the perfectionism trap. They're in the procrastination trap, and they're just kind of riding this basically entrepreneurial, roller coaster, income roller coaster. And they feel drained and they feel stressed out about their business, and they want their business to give them life and to give them energy, and they want to feel light, but it just doesn't because they're so attached to that goal that they wanted or that income that they wanted to make that they're not making yet. And so those are the people who come to me, right? I have had like really high achievers come to me too, where like they feel like they're making 7 figures and they feel like they just cannot be present with their family still, that their business won't operate without them, that they have to be the one doing all the things. They have a really hard time like delegating because they think no one else can do it as good as they can do it. So I'll just do the work. And so these people are like super, super burnt out. So I help them get away from that and have more enjoyment and flow in their life.
So how would you say, let's say for a friend, I'm asking,
Yeah.
but for somebody who does struggle with, let's go with perfectionism, because that's when they graduate degrees. And so we're very high academic achievers, and that rewards some perfectionism on some level. So what's got us to this point is great, but as an entrepreneur, not so great. So how would you help somebody get over this perfectionism hurdle, if you could?
Yeah. I mean, I am a recovering perfectionist and recovering people pleaser and all the things. So I know what it's like. And what it is it's most of the times we're tying our self-worth to the external circumstance or whatever it is, right? And so it really is just being okay, knowing that, first of all, perfectionism doesn't exist. Honestly, I don't know if I can say this on the show or not, but you can just believe it out if you want to. But I mean, think about like if you see someone where they seem like they just have it all together all the time, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like it is such bullshit, right? Come on, like it is not. It's not real. Like it's just not real. It's not relatable. You're not able to build trust with people if you don't show like the mess along the way, and you don't show the mess ups along the way, and you don't show like, wow, you should have seen like this is really hard for me, but I'm going to keep doing it. And so I think it's just honestly just reminding yourself that things are never going to be perfect. Like they're never going to be perfect. And if you're telling yourself that they're perfect, you're just lying to yourself anyways, because it's just not. Just walking through it, walking through the hard times, being okay with, all right, like that was kind of a flop, and sharing it. I found honestly that the more that you actually talk about like when you have those fallbacks, those flaws, you're just so much more relatable. It helps you overcome it more. I just lost my train of thought too. I was going to say something else. There was one more thing. It was going to be good.
I'm sure.
It was going to be great too.
Perfectionism doesn't exist.
Yeah. God, I wish it would come to me now.
Well, I'll give you a minute to capture your thoughts and just say, we were listening to the Moana 2 soundtrack the other day. And although that movie's not as good as Moana 1.
I haven't seen it yet. I've been wanting to see it.
It's not as good, But there's a line in one of the songs where a lady, I think she's a bat lady. It's kind of hard to follow the story, to be honest. But
The bat lady?
no, they're on the boat. All right, doesn't
Oh,
matter. But the line is like, perfection doesn't exist. There's the only thing you have is failure and learning. And then
right.
like the line goes like, there's like failure and learning and then death. And like, that's
Yeah,
it. That's all
it
there
is.
is. Right.
It's true. I know. It's so true. I was actually just listening to my mentor, and he said something very similar to that. He's like, it's basically, you're in your own mind every day, and you got to be aware of these thoughts that you have, and you just got to take the garbage out. And every day you're going to need to take the garbage out. And every day you're going to take the garbage out forever and ever and ever until the end of time. And then you die. And it's like so true. But like people don't want to pay attention to that. Like, why do I feel like I need to be perfect with this? Why do I feel like I'm not good enough if I'm not getting straight A's or whatever and all that stuff? It's like, because you're attached. And they do always say, I've always learned like through the years that the more that you can detach yourself from something, the more you'll be able to move away from that need to feel like you're perfect or have to be perfect. It's just because like you are basically saying that like, I need this. This is like who I am. So it has to happen this way. And if it doesn't, and again, you're just making it mean something negative about yourself. It goes back to that. Like if I don't do this perfectly, if I don't appear this way when I'm presenting or when I'm speaking with someone or when I'm on this call or when I'm on this training, then that means blah, 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 blah. And you fill it in with what you want. So.
Yeah. I mean, I've lately gotten into, and I'm sure you're familiar with at least the principles behind it, but like the Stoics or the Stoicism principles or philosophy.
No.
So Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus are kind of like the big three of this philosophy. But I mean, if I could boil it down to one sentence, it's the Serenity Prayer. It's like,
oh yeah. Yeah.
That's basically the entire philosophy in my view, and I'm just starting to learn about it. But
I love that. That's awesome.
Like we can control what we can control. And the other big thing is like, there's no good or bad, just what we attach to it.
Yeah.
So this is a thing that's happened. How I react to it will determine, the next little bit.
I know. And it's true. It's like the thing is like we're always creating these stories in our minds about everything that's happening. Like we're doing it all day long with every single little thing. Like it's always on autopilot. It's all in our subconscious. But if we can just start telling ourselves better stories, then we're going to start getting better outcomes, and we won't have this attachment to, these goals and things that we want in life. It won't feel so heavy all the time. And so like, this has to happen. Like, and if it doesn't, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And then my good friend and mentor, who actually I'm going to be meeting, I always joke about that because he's, a big social media influencer, but we're going to a workshop next month with Alex.
What's his name?
Alex Hormozy.
Oh, okay.
You probably have encountered him or soon will, since now the algorithms heard us talk about it.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But he likes to help people focus, like all you can control is the input and not the output. So like if your goal, and I'm using scare quotes here, if your goal is like, let's say $50,000 sales for the year or the month or whatever period, that's great. You can't control that outcome, but you can control how many times you reach out to people, or how many ads you run, or how many times you adjust those ads, or how many emails you write, or how many, whatever. Like you can only control the inputs. And then if you do that enough, the output will come at some point, and learning and failing and death. And that brings me back to, you're supposed to be the expert here, but I'm talking too much for a host.
Like an expert too.
Yeah. Well, as a, in the entrepreneur space, we all have to like go seek these out because everybody struggles with it, I think.
True.
Is in Atomic Habits, but it was before that. He talks about the clay pots, or it might have even been a photography class because it got conflated. But, one group was graded on one perfect photo or one perfect pot. And then the other group in this class were graded on the sheer volume of pots that they could create over the semester. And what ended up happening was the people on the volume ended up making better, perfect pots because they had tried and tried and tried and failed and failed and failed, and then got better and got better and got better than the people that spent the whole semester on one single pot. So bringing this back to perfectionism and failure and death, and also absorbing something and not actually going and doing it, is probably guest teach in your membership. But
yeah, I know, right?
But this is me absorbing it all, and it's another thing to put it into action, right?
It is.
It's a daily struggle, like taking out the garbage. But I interpreted your story as taking the garbage out of our mind.
Yes, taking the garbage out of our mind. Yes, exactly.
So that's something that I have to remind myself of a lot, and we end up reminding people who are in our business mentorship too.
I know it's true. It's an ongoing, you never stop working on it. It's kind of like if you decide that you're going to be, a healthy and fit person, your identity becomes that of I'm a healthy and fit person, and everything you do revolves around that. Like you're not going to go smoke a cigarette if you're not a smoker type of thing, right? Same thing with this. Like, all right, I'm going to work on my mind. I'm going to everything. And I always believe, like I always say this, that like, all right, as long as if I'm taking the right actions every day and I'm, leading with my heart and I'm taking inspired action and I'm adding value, like it always works out the way it's meant to work out. Like you either get what you want or you get what you need, and you learn what you need to learn to grow into the person really who you need to become in order to achieve that big thing. So nothing's ever wasted.
Yeah. And sometimes I don't learn the lesson. So I just have to be, I get what I need more than I get what I want over and over again on the same thing. But trying not to get discouraged is, I think, is the hard part on that one.
I know, that's the whole thing. It's because we put these timelines on it. Like, I don't know, that was one of the things that kind of held me back. Like, oh, okay, like, all right, I should be here by this amount of time, by 1 year in or whatever. And then I'm not. And I'm like, oh my God, like, see what I mean? Like, but this other person is like way up here after this amount of time. And I wanted to be here by then. And blah, blah, blah. It's so ridiculous.
Oh, that's another one too. Do you get a lot of people that compare themselves to others and then feel bad and then go stressy or doom scroll?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one, but it's because of social media, it's so easy to like get caught up in like what everybody else is doing. And honestly, like when I first started actually my very first business, I know it's getting kind of off topic a little bit, but I did not want to do that. And I literally didn't follow like anybody in the company that was doing big things because I didn't want to have to feel like, oh, okay, that's how I have to act. That's how I have to look. That's how I have to talk. It wasn't going to be me. I wasn't going to be showing up as my authentic self. And I knew I would never be able to build a business if I was just trying to imitate somebody else, right? Because it's not really who I am.
Yeah.
So like Nick seriously knew who like some of the like top elite coaches were way before I did. I was like, I don't watch any of that stuff. I'm just too busy doing what I need to do, which is build my business instead of looking around. But yeah, it's easy now. Like with social media, it's so easy to just go down that negative spiral, down the rabbit hole of like, oh, but look at her. And oh my God, they got this. And then there's just so much. Don't do it.
You said it. Like if it looks perfect, it probably isn't. It's probably really messy.
Exactly. There's a shitstorm going on inside there. Trust me.
It might be like a duck who looks real calm on top of the surface, but underneath is like the ugliest paddle you've ever seen.
Exactly.
And we also help caution people to not compare your step 1 or 2 to somebody else's like step 12 or 22.
Exactly.
Right.
I know. We all start there. It's like if you go back and look at my videos, like I said, from back in the day, it's like, oh my God, wow, I've come so far. But what do? It's either you do it or you don't do it.
Yeah.
And then you wish you had started as like the years go by, right?
That's a fun experiment. So anybody listening, go into Kathy's old YouTube, which is it at Kathi Reuter?
It's just Kathi Reuter.
All right.
Kathi Reuter
on YouTube.
Yes. Check it out.
Go check out how they used to look.
Yeah, it's something else. I mean, I would have never, ever pictured myself doing like calls like this, speaking on stages, doing a live video. Like half the time at the very beginning, I had to show up and run these calls, and sometimes no one would even show up.
Yeah.
And I showed up and did it anyway.
Right.
I
mean, that's discouraging.
Right.
I mean, on a similar front, I cringe when I look back at my earliest YouTube videos. Like, The lighting is terrible. My shirt is terrible. My beard and hair are terrible. Like, but yet I got the year-end review from YouTube, and like my best performing video of all time is like a video from the very first like 2 months of it, in like bad lighting, whatever. They just care about the content. So if you're holding yourself back from starting, people are listening, just start, because it'll look crappy in the beginning. It will. You have to allow yourself to be a beginner, like Kathi said earlier, and then be able to laugh about it in a year or 2 or 10.
Exactly. Yeah. Just don't take yourself so seriously. Everybody takes themselves so seriously. Like no one wants that. No, just have fun with it. Get out there, do it scared, do it messy, do it, not knowing really what you're doing. And you're just going to get better and better as you go.
Yeah. And make sure you do it big.
Right. And yeah, exactly. Do it big.
It took me 3 or 4 takes just to start this episode with Kathi on this recording. So we'll probably put those bloopers at the end just to kind of.
Yeah, those are fun. I mean, that's relatable. People will laugh their ass off about that.
Practice what we preach a little bit.
Exactly. It's not perfect, guys.
But yeah, Kathi has tons of free resources for you, and I'll put those in the show notes. I think it'll be, you just go to functionallawyer.com/junto
Okay.
right now, and that'll be like the best place to find these show notes. And then we'll get
Okay.
more dialed
Awesome.
in with the actual links on the intro and outro to this episode. But functionallawyer.com/junto is where this episode lives. Or you can find us on all, YouTube and all that. She's like, I just downloaded the other day. She has a think this, not that kind of handout, kind of just helping you identify some of these limiting beliefs, like it has to be perfect or all of that. And then that's a great free one. And then I think she has some others she said she'd share with us as well if you're listening. So
Yeah, and
her website,
the think this thought not that is really good too, because if you think about it, right? If you think about it, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Like all the thoughts that you have right now are just all here because of a habit of you building in a habit of thinking a certain way on autopilot for your whole entire life. But you can change the way that you think. And if you can change the way that you think, then you can change your life, because everything that you have right now around you is all a result of your thoughts of the past. And so if there's an area that you want to improve, then you need to change the thoughts of today. And so just by, all right, being aware of that limiting thought and then replacing it and just practicing that, that's how you start to do that.
And yeah, I love that. And I think too, not just your thoughts of your past or the habitual thoughts, but like today's thoughts too. I think we assume things are true when those assumptions are based on old experiences, or like I'm not good enough. Well, is that a fact, or is that just like a thought that's popped into my head sort of thing? And when I learned that kind of distinction, that really was super eye-opening for me, kind of just to, well, wait a second. So if I'm spiraling down,
yeah,
I'm like, which
if I'm
I still
spiraling
do.
down,
Yep. If I'm junk eating, stress eating, and doom scrolling, I have to like put my phone down, sit in the silence, I guess, or go take a shower.
Yes, in the silence, everybody.
Go take a shower, and then I kind of just be like, well, is that true? And even like if it is true, so what? Like what can I do about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I call that your little bitch voice in my program. I refer to that as your little bitch voice.
Okay.
We're not going to listen to that. We don't want to listen to that voice.
Yeah. All right. I like that.
Okay. I put the swears in there. See?
Yeah.
Where are my people?
I think it's all of us. I'm like, I have to catch myself sometimes, and they're like, it's fine on our office hours.
Yeah. That's so funny.
If you're listening to this with kids in the car, heads up, there's some expletives. I probably should have put that in the beginning.
Whoops.
But now's a good chance for you to have a conversation with them about appropriate language and when it's okay and when it's not. But no, thank you. So Kathy's got all the freebies. Her website is kathireuter.com. And I'm really so happy to have you. Anything else you want us to know before we let you go? Get back to your stuff.
That was it. Just thanks so much for having me on today. I hope that you enjoyed it. And yeah, the best advice I can give is to, not believe everything that you think. Challenge your thoughts, be aware. And if there's something that's been on your heart that you want to do, say, make a change, it'll eat you alive until you actually do it. So just do it, and do it scared, and do it even though you're nervous, and do it even though you're not really sure of the outcome, and do it, and it will work out exactly the way that it's meant to.
Yeah. And take the leap. Like the information is out there. Acquiring the skills has never been easier. Truly.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do it. Check her out at kathireuter.com or at Katherine Royder on all the socials. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Junto. That was kathireuter.com, KATHIREUTER.com, or Katherine Royder on all the social media channels. And for all the show notes, all the links that we talked about, all the things, go to junto.show/201. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Junto with Scott Radigan.